Yeah. So I call the meeting to order. I don't need to tell everybody that we have a lot on the agenda this morning. And Andre has to leave at 11:20 for medical appointment. So I'm suggesting that we remove, and you can take it, you tell me whether you want to, they're not big, but they're at least for a start, 8.2, 9.1, 9.3, and 10.4. That's in Kent? No. And I have to add a discussion church moral update on church moral.
No, it's not negotiation right now, it's just an update on the request that was.
Okay, yes.
So does anybody get a problem with taking 8.2, 9.1, 9.3, and 10.4 off for today?
No.
And we're going to turn our June 20th meeting into a council meeting as opposed to a committee of the whole so that we can deal with all that stuff. Okay?
Do you need a motion for that?
Another addition
Oh, yeah.
under committee reports,
Okay, Tina.
EDI, Councilor Dino. Thank you.
Okay, somebody want to move those changes?
So moved.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Public input, I don't have any specific, well, one person? Okay, come on up. Come on up.
Thank you guys.
Oh, sorry, then maybe there's more. Tristan, you wanted to speak as well.
You want? You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Barry Redmond, 4020 Highway number 3. I'll try to be quick. Two things that I think are pertinent to what's going on lately: the water, the well, and height restrictions, and just observations lately. And you can sort of sum it up by looking at the construction that is happening where the old tea room is, the new place that's going up on Queen Street. And the height of that building is taller than the other buildings around. It may meet standards and that sort of thing, but it has essentially blocked the view of Quaker Island from at least 4 or 5 residences that have been there for years and years and years. I believe this could have been avoided. It is a full 2 stories plus basically a 12-12 pitch that is basically non-living space. The same footprint could have been taken into consideration if it was like a story and a half. They would add the same amount of square footage, only it would have been about 6 feet lower, which would have saved the view of a few people. Now, I would suggest that in this day and age, with computers and design, that maybe planning could get a program where they could look at a design in the house that is going in and see how it's going to affect the other properties around. It's just respect. And the other thing that is actually, it's happened on the same property, is there seems to be a trend of drilling wells now. And it's a problem. We have to have some kind of restrictions or look at what the water situation is, because there was a well drilled on that property. I know of one property next to it that the water has turned sour since then. I've heard other instances, examples of this throughout the village of drilling wells. I'm particularly concerned, we just have to do some studies and respect the water and the wells that people already have. There's going to be some development between Queen and King Street, and talking with the owners, they plan to drill There's going to be 3 more houses going in there. They plan to drill 3 more wells, although there's 2 dug wells there already. What's going to happen to, when we go down through all the levels, it disturbs what's down there. We got to start thinking about shallower wells and respecting the wells that are already there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you want to speak next?
Yeah. I wanted to make a request to council that giving consideration to a property at what is effectively the subject property is 2 Main Street.
Oh, I'm supposed to get your name.
Oh, sorry. Tristan Mills, 132 Regent Street. I want to make a request that the council consider not rezoning, but in the new plan that the zone that these properties are currently moving from low density residential, they're going to be going to an R2 residential zoning. I think in most instances, the low density residential in the rest of the village is being converted to what is going to be an R3 zoning. And I'm requesting that those properties be considered to be converted to R3, which would reflect their low density residential zoning as current, and not go to R2, which is where they're designated in the plan review. I don't think that's inconsistent with the plan, with policy. It just gives a little bit more of a by right density on those properties, that instead of a duplex, it would allow by right for a 4-plex. Which currently there are buildings on those properties that could be easily converted to that. I think in the sense of housing in their location close to the school and the grocery stores, that would be in line with what council's been looking to do with increasing housing opportunities. I've prepared a letter, and I'm operating on behalf of the property owner, who's authorized me to speak to you guys today. So I'll hand the letter out, and I guess maybe this will be discussed a little later on in the.
This whole planning.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah. I'll just go around.
You're going to be top to Garth about this.
Yeah.
I can pass it if you want.
Sure. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Who's the property owner?
Property owner is Heather Guy. And so on another matter, I guess some other people are going to speak about it as well. On the decision around the rules governing the marine industrial zone that's being considered in the plan review, I'm of like mind with members of our neighborhood, and this is on behalf of not only the neighborhood but also the marine industrial property owners. I believe the current proposition that's in the new plan review, or that's in the proposed plans for that zone is not really. I don't think it's taken into full account. Controls over what can go on those properties in the sense of massing, of outlay of square footages, et cetera, density of tourist accommodation units that are being considered there. There's inconsistencies with surrounding zoning on the level of density of those tourist accommodations that's actually restrictive, but without any kind of proper rules in place. That you could cause a great detriment to that neighborhood in the way that those rules could be interpreted, even with the way it's currently written. Much like my neighbors, I would suggest that piece might want to be broken out of this and given a greater level of consideration, and basically get the marina owners and the property owners in that area to sit down and conference on that to come up with possibly a better solution where everybody's at the table agreeing to that in congruence with the planning department for council's consideration at a later date.
Thank you.
Rick Foster we're at 99 Granite Street, and of course I'm here about the zoning of the boatyards. Garth, I don't see Garth in, I see that, there he is. He's done an amazing job at trying to work around the schedules of the neighborhood and the boatyard owners, and we're very, very, very close, like I would say just 2 inches away from being in agreement. What I propose is that we do put a very slight pause on that part, where it would allow us to meet with the boatyard owners, members of the council, whoever would want to be involved, certainly our District 3 councillor, and Garth, and Chad. And I think we could have this sewn up within just a couple of weeks, and certainly by the end of June, we could have it in a full agreement. Eileen and the Stevens group if we can get the chance to meet together, I think we can have this ironed out. We're close enough now. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we weren't close enough. We are close enough now to be able to put this together quite quickly. Thank you.
Oh, that sounds optimistic.
Well, that's my job.
I know, we're running out of time, I know that.
That's not very good.
Okay, is that it for now?
No, someone else then.
Oh, is there?
Me?
Me?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Good morning, I'm Leslie Appleby, and I am here to request a renaming of the private road that's currently known as Riverside Cove to Holters Lane Extension.
Oh, you had an appointment at 9:15.
Oh, so,
This is just people who have no appointments.
okay, so I should sit down for now?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, minutes of previous meeting, council May the 16th. Errors or omissions, people?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Public hearing. Twin Rivers Development Agreement. What's that one? I can't remember that.
It's just, you're just approving the minutes.
Just approving the minutes. Somebody want to do that?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. There. Where else to put it? I got so much paper, I can't keep track. Okay. Proclamations, designations, there's none there. Okay. Committee reports, Heritage, I don't know if I gotta remember what it is I already canceled. Yeah, that was still on there. Heritage Advisory Committee, Deputy Warden Shatford.
I'm going to speak.
I'm going to speak to this one just because councilors weren't at the meeting, so I'll just speak to it real quick. The first motion there, we had some staff a couple summers ago go through all the heritage files and basically pull out the ones that weren't fully registered. There was 16 of them, so he did an in-depth review of all of them, and then the committee sort of went through them and decided which files should be closed, which they don't consider have heritage value right now, and the other ones to be pursued by staff to reach out to the property owners and complete the files. So that's what that motion is about. And then the second one, we are actually going to refer to an upcoming meeting. The committee members want to do a little bit of a public presentation with that one, and I'll bring a brief staff report. So we're just looking for a motion on the first one.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Emily.
Direction to staff on the second.
And direction to staff on the second one. Somebody want to?
Second motion?
Yeah. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. Yeah, EDI committee, Tina, Andre?
I guess that's me. So we met a couple of days ago. Yes. And discussed a variety of things. Included in that was land acknowledgement, which you see a motion that was made before you to recommend to council that the EDI committee draft a land acknowledgement and bring that back on June 20th. And should council wish to receive it, then we would ask that council accept that recommendation.
Yes, I don't have a problem with that. I just think it should be broad and acknowledge all of us as well.
Well, you'll have the recommendation.
Yes and no.
And then you'll have an opportunity to discuss
I will
it.
discuss it at that point.
So have you guys started?
I think there are a couple already drafted pretty well.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be a decision made by the committee which ones to bring forward. And then we'll see what happens when it gets here.
Yeah. So that's a recommendation.
We're looking for
Recommendation and direction.
Direction.
And June 20th will now be a council meeting, which is even better versus a committee of the whole.
Yeah.
So,
So, we're give a motion to,
Got the motion you need?
Well, it could be, or somebody else can make it.
You can make it,
Oh,
now.
that's fine. Well, I'll
Moved and
move
seconded.
that we accept that recommendation.
all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Good job, buddy. You're just amazing.
Can we get through 7.2 in 10 minutes? Coastal action?
No, it's an appointment at 9:30.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
She's ready to go.
Yeah, let her.
She's ready.
Okay. Okay. Come on up. You're here.
Good try again.
Yeah, early but not
Good
early.
morning.
Good morning.
I am Leslie Appleby. I had an appointment. And I'm here to request the renaming of the private road currently known as Riverside Cove to Holters Lane Extension. When the decision was originally proposed to give a portion of Holters Lane, which was formerly my driveway, a new name, I have Exhibit A to show you the map that they sent on that. I had planned on attending that meeting, and I sent a letter, and I talked to Sylvia Dixon on the phone, and when the time came for the meeting, I wasn't advised. Apparently she had a death in her family or something, so I missed it. So that was 8 months ago. When I bought the property, which is known as 51 Holters Lane, was May of 2017, I was the only lot on the road that had a building on it. It's a little cottage, it was there for more than 50 years, and it's the only building on the road that's a house, that's a home. And I bought that to retire. I have Exhibit H to show you that. In 2018, the municipality changed my address from 51 Holters Lane to 43 Holters Lane. So this last renaming of the road is my second address change in less than 5 years. And one of the problems with that is, I don't know if you're aware, that changing your address actually has a negative impact on your credit score. So, because, yeah, and I have an exhibit to show that too. Which exhibit? I'm not sure, Exhibit B. So, when we were looking for new names for the road, I was told that they had to be unique. Riverside Cove is not in the least bit unique. There's actually 6 of them. I'm not gonna name them all off. There's one in Cambridge, there's one in Lower Sackville, there's one in Goldenville, one in Stewiacke. There is no river. I don't know where the name came from, Riverside Cove. I'm on a lake. One person that actually found me said, I was looking for you, couldn't find a lake. So, I mean, I couldn't find a river. All I see is a lake. So, let me see, we're on the lake. So we're the only people that actually live there. There's other buildings there. There's someone who had put in 3 sheds, and they come down on some weekends. And then people next door to us bought 2 lots, and they have 3 trailers there, and they're campers. And they call themselves campers, and I get a picture of their place. There's the 3 sheds, and then there's that's one lot, and then the next lot has the 3 trailers. And then there's my place.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is to change the name from Riverside Cove to Holters Lane Extension, because it's always been Holters Lane. That's how people find it, and that's really all it is. It's like a fork in the road. One goes that way, one goes that way. So now we have this ridiculously high sign that says Riverside Cove, and you can't find it on GPS. I haven't had one Amazon delivery since the name was changed 8 months ago. I've had to change my name back, my address back to 43 Holters Lane on Amazon in order to get my deliveries. So, and also, because it looks so similar to the previous one, I was told by someone who's in lending that it wouldn't have a negative effect on the credit score, because lenders can look at it and say, oh, shouldn't actually move. Her address is changed from 43 Holters Lane to 43 Holters Lane Extension. And that's a completely unique name. There's no other Holters Lane anywhere, because the guy down the road from me made that name up.
Okay.
And really, it's just so much simpler. And that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Sounds
Thank
simple
you.
to me. Sylvia, tell me what that all means.
Hi. So I wasn't at the last September council meeting, but I did bring the report to council. Included in that was Leslie's letter stating her concerns and what her proposed road names were. The other property owners wanted Riverside Cove. There are other Riverside lanes and drives in Nova Scotia, but Riverside Cove is unique. What other items did I address?
So they did a petition, we did the petition,
Yes,
the
we did the
same as we
petition.
always do.
Yeah.
And the majority of people wanted
Riverside Cove.
Riverside Cove. Why did we change it in the first place? Yeah.
There were some new properties that were being developed, so Leslie was the only one using that driveway at the time. But now there's 2 more that wanted an address off that driveway. And with the 3 addresses, there's a requirement for a new private road name. So that's why we approached the property owners with the request. And I did send all the property owners a letter about the council meeting before I left for my funeral.
So the only option we would have then, because it was done appropriately, as I understand it, and there was a petition and this is what they chose, would be to go back to the property owners and ask them whether or not they would object to being...
We could, again, there's the potential that they may not want to change, and also the fire department may not be supportive of the Holters Lane extension because it is similar to the Holters Lane. It's not a true extension of the lane itself. But we could go to each property owner again and see what they think of the Holters Lane extension.
When you say not a true extension, explain that.
It's a Y intersection. It's not an extension of Holters Lane.
So
is it the one on the left up there?
No, I don't think she has the map up. I don't know if Leslie included it in her. I think this one is the one that looks most like the map that was sent to the property owners. This one here. So that's before the Riverside Cove, and the dashed line to the 43 is the driveway. That's now named Riverside Cove.
So the best approach would be for Leslie to go out and try to negotiate with them.
She could do that, or we could help her out and...
Well, we could help her out, yes, but, yes, Tina.
So just a question, so if Holters Lane was not the road name previous, it wasn't a road name.
Holters Lane is a road name.
It's just that it didn't exceed the number of people that we had there.
Right, so it was already named, it was already a road name.
Yep.
And then driveway wasn't. So Holters Lane is the black line.
So last summer, that's what Holters Lane looked
The dash
like.
that says driveway, I think, is the one that's been renamed.
That's right, that's now.
So an extension of Holters Lane would typically be
On the end.
at the end of Holters Lane that gets further extended. This is the confusion, I think, from an emergency management standpoint, or would be that you're going down Holters Lane and it Ys off onto a different road, which used to be a driveway, is now a road.
Yeah, I get that.
And so
That makes
that's
sense.
a concern.
Yeah.
So the fire department may take issue.
Right.
They may, because it's not really an extension of Holters Lane.
Yeah, I understand now.
Yes.
Does Holters Lane itself, as you say, the walk, does it continue on in the other direction?
This is what Holters Lane looked like last summer before the Riverside Cove was named, the driveway you can see there to Leslie's house at 43.
Sure, so it continues on, the actual Holters Drive, beyond the Y.
Beyond where the Riverside Cove now is, yeah.
So some variation of Holters, not extension.
We could call her spur or something.
West.
Yeah, something else besides extension may be
I think
more
it'd be-
suitable.
it's something off of Holters Lane, so I think it's something that
Division.
Holters.
Holter Lane Division Road.
Okay, so I think the question is Leslie, are you prepared to work with staff? I mean, we've gone through the process that was required. If we want to...
The thing is, I don't see the people to talk to them. They come down some weekends, you know what I mean? I'm not usually around on the weekends. I'm busy, I'm there through the week, I live there.
Yeah.
They're just visiting, you know, like I said, there's the 3 sheds and then the 3 trailers. And that's it. I'm the only one that's affected by this address change. They get their mail and their deliveries in either Eastern Passage or Greenwood, where they actually live. I don't even know that emergency vehicles could find me in there because it's not showing up on GPS. If you put it in right now, 37 Riverside Cove into Google Maps, you're gonna be out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't show up at all.
And I just want to note that Emergency Services does not use Google Maps. They use the official Nova Scotia civic address file, the 911 database. So it shows up
And it is on there.
Well, Amazon chooses Google Maps because they can't find me anymore. Purelator, all those, nobody can find me. And also, I forgot to mention, the sign is ridiculously tall. I have a picture of myself standing beside the new sign. It's 10 to 11 feet tall. You can't even see it. That's my last exhibit.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a solution, but from my understanding, we went through the appropriate process, and that's what yeah, so I mean, if we want to change it, we have to still use that process. And
Well, like I said,
somehow,
I'm unlikely to be able to talk to them because I really don't see them. They're
well,
just
I mean,
campers.
we can attempt to do that, but unless we get the feedback from them that suggests that they're willing to consider it, and that the fire department doesn't have an issue with it, it makes it difficult for us.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah. So you can attempt
Do
to
you
contact.
want me to contact?
Well, I mean,
the
you know, you want to try to help people if you can. So, I mean, if you can contact them and see whether they object, see whether the fire department objects. If the fire department objects, then we're afraid. Yeah.
Yeah, start
Start with the fire department?
Yeah, start with that.
I'd just like to ask you for, so, and Sandy, you might be able to answer this. So what if you approached it as halter lane diversion road? Would that
That would be fine.
Would that satisfy you as well? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that might be a little too long for a private road name sign.
No, we
but
need to
something similar.
involve the other people who own property because that's the way we do it. That's our policy, so we have to at least do that. And the first step is the fire department, because if they have a problem, then we're a problem.
In short, it's not about the name, it's about, we require participation from your neighbors.
Yeah.
Whether they're there or not, they have to.
If they own
Also,
property, they get, yeah.
they own 2/3 of the property, so we need some consent from them as well.
Yeah.
Because they could build there. They don't, they're not there today, but that doesn't mean they never will be. So our process allows for their consent as well. So it sounds like we're willing to try to reach out and see if we can reach a compromise, but should they see,
If they all
If they
object, the
decline,
fire department objects, then we're
this
a
is where
problem.
we're
I
at.
understand that.
Yeah.
I do.
So we'll attempt to try to resolve it and
Thank you.
see where we come.
Thank you, I do appreciate
We'll
that.
bring us
Okay,
Sunday.
thank you. Okay, postal action's not due till 9:30. So. Eight point one is still on here, isn't it?
No, we took 8.1 off.
Did
Okay.
No,
We were at 8.1.
we took 8.2 off, no.
Oh, did we? Okay.
8.2, 8.1, I mean. Policy adoption, municipal elections policy.
Yeah, so this is notice that we need motion to approve.
Yeah, because we've already given notice.
Also move.
Seconder? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Notice of intent, 8.3, first reading to respond to draft amendments to municipal planning strategy, municipal land use bylaw for radio communication facilities proposal.
Morning.
Morning.
So this is regarding the ongoing CRINS matter where we've switched to a policy approach for consultations for new cell towers.
Yeah.
So the policy was adopted on March 28th, and this is to amend the policies in the municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw. Essentially, there's some language in there about CRINS specific to CRINS, and we're not in partnership with them anymore.
No.
So if you did want to pull up the Appendix A quickly, I could just outline the changes. Basically, the second sentence in the policy preamble is removed, and we've revised policy G23 to reflect that CRINS is not there and that Municipal Council can adopt a policy. And in the land use bylaw, fairly similar change, removing a sentence about CRINS and then also on page 57, which is on the same page as the regulation 420, there's a little blurb on the side that directs you to where you can find CRINS. So that's the extent of the changes.
Yeah, so we want to give first reading, people?
Yes.
Motion to do so? Seconder? Somebody? Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Are the people from Coastal Action here yet?
We're looking for it.
Okay, I'll just keep going. Well, I can't do 9.2 because then we'll miss the appointment. 9.4? Request for direction, community development, and recreation, response to complaint. Where is 9.4?
Just checking with our next presenter, and she's almost here. She's just 5 minutes out. So.
Okay.
The report before you this morning, hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look. And so this is a response to the concerns that the Burgoynes, Beth and Danny were here to present their concerns and share a few items with you. And so essentially council asked for additional information. So what I've kind of attempted to do is to take each of their points and their concerns and then provide some information both for council. Some of it is intuitive, you know the answer already, but for the purposes of the Burgoynes as well, just so it's kind of clear on each of those points. So I'm not sure if you want me to kind of run through each and every one of those, or if you just wanted to, if there's any questions specifically about it. But essentially, I think the concerns that were raised, I think there is somewhat of an answer to each of those items that are on there. So,
yeah, I mean,
Please, let's hear it.
Want to run through? Okay, sure. With property evaluation, there was some concerns around how the property was evaluated. So, and again, this particular one is a little bit challenging for us to answer because PVSC is a separate organization and they provide the service to us, and we don't really have control over their operations. And so what we always do if people have concerns with their property their assessments is to go directly and deal with PVSC. And so that's what we're suggesting here. And there was we just had a note that there was concerns that their evaluation was perhaps higher than it would like to be, and so I just put a couple of notes in there just with their building activity that's currently taking place on the properties. That do have a cottage there, and there's an additional building on site as well, and those adding anytime you develop property, of course, as everyone knows, that most likely will increase their property assessment at some time in the very near future once kind of all that paperwork makes its way through the system. So, and just by way of an update on the note on the storage building, so they do now have a building permit and they have shared engineering plans. So we're continuing to work with them on that secondary building to make sure that it's followed all the proper permitting processes.
That's progress.
Yeah. So there was a request for reduced municipal taxes, and of course some of this information here was from our Director of Finance as well. And so basically the request was if a property, and so I think this was for their property, but the concern was shared for other properties in the municipality as well, that if a property does not receive a service, that they should have a reduction in taxes. And I don't have to tell all of you, but generally speaking, we normally don't do that. We don't look at every particular property. If you don't receive a service, then you don't pay that portion of the taxes. That's generally not how we operate. And specifically the request in there was with respect to garbage collection. And so because the garbage curbside collection doesn't come to their property based on their location, I think that they felt that they shouldn't have to pay the garbage portion of the taxes. And so I guess the clarification in the report is that, in fact, that portion of the taxes, we charge it to everybody regardless. So and if the garbage collection doesn't come to your door, then you need to basically get in touch with us and make arrangements for that to happen some other way.
Yes, and I'll just say that if we made an exception, I'm sure there'll be lots of people that will request that, because there are many people that have woodlots that are paying garbage tax and they never use it.
Tons of private roads that we don't go down because they're not suitable, and you gotta bring it out and branch numbers out.
So essentially the main message is that the general tax rate pays for all services, and even if you may not take advantage of every particular service that the municipality offers, everyone's still required to pay that general tax.
That's not an issue.
So for the civic numbering, so again, they mentioned that that the municipality deny this a civic number being assigned to their property, and we looked at that very closely because obviously our concern as well is that people have access to emergency services, and the civic number is how emergency services find you. So I did include, just for your reference, a copy of the letter that was sent out to the Burgoynes from Sylvia. And so we have made sure that we kind of cover all our bases. So we had a legal opinion. We connected in with the Nova Scotia Civic address file, as well as Transportation and Public Works. And because the 103 is controlled access, that is not an approved access point. That cannot happen off the 103, and therefore we are not able to assign a civic address. So there are other examples from that portion of the municipality, so the northern side of the 103, where there are approved permanent transportation crossings. So that would be one suggestion that we would have, is that they could look at that. Obviously there needs to be, the connection with the property owners on the other side of Highway 3 and how you access that. So in this particular case, it's relatively close to Bridgeview Drive that goes up through. So whether or not that would be a possibility, I don't know. But those are the types of things
we could suggest that they try to negotiate that with the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, and so the suggestion at their presentation was that the municipality create a new road for that, and that is always a possibility if council felt that was a priority. But essentially my report just kind of outlined that generally we don't normally build roads for folks, and there are some times when we would take over roads that are built for subdivision purposes and those kind of things. So in this particular case, if council wished to pursue that, you absolutely could, or if we wanted to, connect with Nova Scotia Public Works to see if there's interest on their part, that would be an opportunity. But again, typically with
contact Public Works and ask them to contact these people and see whether or not they can sort something out. But I don't see it as us.
And it is a little backwards to what we typically see. Like normally when people purchase property, the access is one of the things that even before somebody purchases a property, that they figure out what the access is. And so it sounds like they were under the assumption that they could use the 103 as access, but that is clearly not permitted to do that. So.
In going through all your report, her concern with the PVSC, all of those I agree with, but the civic number, and I understand the argument, but my concern for the Burgoynes is that the safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me, even though it's what we do, and it's almost like for them to get a civic number, it really, and I hate the fact that if God forbid something were to happen, and someone says, look, we've been trying to do this to get this even though it's a controlled access highway, you know, there's got to be a way to be able to get it on Google Maps. And I know that's not our policy, but these are unique situations.
Yeah.
And I think safety is the first, foremost thing we should look at, regardless of how we get there.
So one of the things that I suggested in the report is that, in particular in their situation, even more so than the average family. So I know we encourage people to have, you know, do they have emergency plans for, you know, weather events? Do you have emergency plans for if you have a fire, like, you know, where's your muster station, all those kind of things. In this particular case, anybody that is off-grid, anyone that doesn't have a civic number, anyone that is in a location, whether you're, even if you're going on a fishing trip or a camping trip, like if you're out of range, you should be doing your own emergency planning for that situation. And so that is something that I think that we would recommend to them in particular. So having latitude and longitude location, so for their civic, so that when they call, whether it's by their phone or in their pocket or what have you, is that you're able to provide latitude and longitude location. Like those are all things. So they don't, but I think EHS, like if you're able to provide your location, like especially, well, we all know we all work with our fire department. So fire departments, they will find you. Like if you can provide any information, they will find you, right? So I think there are alternatives outside of the civic address, and I think we'd be willing to, like if there's additional information that we can provide, whether it's through our, you know, fire safety coordinator or whatnot, we'd be more than happy to, you know, to help work with the property owner to help think about that kind of emergency planning.
So even if they had that information provided to the fire department.
Right.
So if my call, here's where I am.
Is that
how you get there? That's whatever. They'll find their own way.
So you're talking about longitude and latitude. So where would that be registered with, or is it would be like not on Google Maps, obviously?
No, so that would be up to the property owner to have their particular location to have it ready.
So where would that information go?
No, so they would provide that information. So if they're
to the fire department,
right?
To EHS,
right?
To all those pertinent whoever.
Right. So like typically if you make a 911 call on your cell phone, they track you by your phone, right? And they can find your latitude and longitude based on your cell phone coordinates, right? So so I think that would be the first step. But if that for some reason that wasn't the case, and you were able to provide that location information, and they could help find you.
I guess if the 911 caller is Beth Burgoyne, and they ask for civic, obviously she's not going to have one.
Right.
So are the communication people like Scotia Business or whoever does that 911 service, if she gives them a longitude or latitude, are they going to be able to convey that to first responders? Or
right. So that's what I'm suggesting. Yes.
Okay.
And that's what the Nova Scotia Civic Address Guidelines recommend as well.
EMO is telling us not to provide civic addresses where there's no public access.
Yeah, Emergency Management Office has said, and it's in the package, that without safe vehicular access, you don't provide that.
I just got a quick question. I don't know the answer. I always thought to get a building permit, you required a septic approval and a highway approval. So, do they have a building permit?
So they have a building permit, and so I made a note in here that there are some situations where there wouldn't be an approved driveway access. So some of those locations would be our island. So we give building permits to somebody that builds on an island. What's that?
They're not on
No, I know. I'm telling you all the examples of when we do that. If there are some properties that are on a lake. Right, so they're landlocked, so there's access to land on other properties around them, but there's no roads that go to it, and they may access that property by the lake. So
my point though is they must have known when they built their house.
Correct.
That they had no right.
That they had.
Correct.
Because I think they must have understood that, so really they created their own issue.
Yes.
Okay, so you can contact us, tell them that this is one way in which we can at least, you can identify where you are in case of emergency, but it doesn't seem like there's much else for us to do.
Yeah, and you know, at some point in the I just made a note, you know, at some point in the future, if they were able to gain access, so if they are to build a private road into, if they're able to work with their neighbors and create an easement and that connects to a road in either direction, either to, kind of Beach Hill or the other direction, we'd be more than happy to provide a civic number at that time that
Or highways
access
gives them a permit for access,
Correct.
anything. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can contact them, just tell them that, and that's all we can do.
Okay.
Unless somebody has a different, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
That was simple here this morning. Coastal Action, you think they're here?
Yeah, Brooke's here.
Stewardship.
Yeah, okay.
Coastal Action. Good morning, Council. My name is Garth Bangay, and I'm the chair of the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee. And Kaylee McLeod is with me as well as with Coastal Action, our technical support. Thank you for having us. This is an important presentation for us because it's a culmination of 7 years of work.
Yeah.
I've been coming here routinely for 7 years, and Kaylee hasn't been, but some of her predecessors have. And it's exciting to have established what we set out to do, which is a baseline of understanding of the water quality in Sherbrooke Lake. And just a little bit of context, all of this began because there was a very strong push for public access to Sherbrooke Lake. And the government supported that. One of the things the residents around the lake and the wider public wanted was to be ensured that the environment of the lake was not in any way despoiled by increasing the pressure on the lake. And so the argument was put forward, a baseline study, which would give us a good understanding of the nature of the water quality, and that water quality is quite complex, but that we would have that as kind of a benchmark, if you like, to say this is what Sherbrooke Lake looks like, and such that any increase in public access would be measurable and we could then deal with it. So that's very important. The other thing about that baseline study is that we come every year and tell you about it. We provide you with very comprehensive reports, but we also provide it to the public. And that's really important in terms of informing people so such they understand what's going on. So that's by way of introduction. I'll conclude later with some recommendations, and I'll turn it over to Kaylee to take you through the presentation.
Good morning, Council. As mentioned, I'm Kaylee McLeod. I'm a project coordinator with Coastal Action.
You want to move your mic over close and we'll turn it on. Probably got to press the button there. Yeah, you did.
Okay, is that on?
Yeah.
All right, I'm very soft-spoken, I apologize. So I'll be presenting on the Sherbrooke Lake project. This was intended as a 5-year water quality monitoring program to establish a baseline of the lake and its tributaries, so the inlets of the lake. There was a preliminary year in 2017 to determine the best sites and parameters to study for the project. 2018, the full project commenced. Unfortunately, due to the global pandemic, the project was paused in 2020, but resumed in 2021, and then finished up in 2023. This program has been jointly funded by the Municipality of the District of Lunenburg and the Municipality of Chester. And throughout the project, fieldwork has been carried out by a group of dedicated volunteers who were supported by the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee, and technical support was provided by Coastal Action. So now we'll get into some of the main results and trends of the study. So the first one we'll look at is chlorophyll A and phycocyanin. These are pigments found in photosynthetic organisms like plants and algae. So chlorophyll A can be an indicator of the overall algae production, while phycocyanin is an indicator specific to cyanobacteria or blue-green algae. These can impact productivity and growth of organisms, oxygen levels in the water, turbidity, which is the clarity of the water, and can either indicate or cause harmful algae blooms like blue-green algae. Chlorophyll A does not have any current guidelines, but phycocyanin has 2 level alerts, level 1 at 20,000 cells per milliliter and level 2 at 100,000 cells per milliliter. Phycocyanin did not approach any guidelines at any sites. So this probe was purchased in 2021 by MODL for the municipal-owned YSI. So that's why you're only seeing 3 years of data for these parameters. The second parameters to look at are total phosphorus and total nitrogen. These are essential nutrients required by aquatic plants and algae for growth. When you have excessive levels of these nutrients, it can cause a disruption to the natural production of algae in aquatic systems, and this can negatively impact the aquatic system. When you have excessive levels of total phosphorus, it can lead to algae blooms, either non-toxic forms of green algae or blue-green algae, which can contain harmful toxins. It can also lead to reduced oxygen, as well as fish die-offs and changes in the plant community. Throughout the project, the average total phosphorus and total nitrogen did not exceed guidelines, so the guidelines are indicated by the red lines on the graphs. Surface water temperature is important to monitor because it impacts nearly all physical, chemical, and biological processes. The water temperatures do appear to be increasing. However, we did not have enough data for robust statistical analyses. So temperature is impacted both seasonally and time of day, so it fluctuates throughout these. So it's uncertain whether or not these trends are accurate or if they're due to these other factors. Taking one sample at one time does not give an overall idea of the trends that are happening. However, if you do have prolonged elevated temperature, it can impact oxygen levels. So oxygen is very closely related with temperature. It can also impact organism growth and development, metabolism. A lot of species have specific temperature thresholds, so it can impact habitat availability and species composition. The guideline for cold water fish species like Atlantic salmon and trout is 20 degrees Celsius, you can see the last 3 years, the average temperature did exceed this. However, as mentioned, there weren't enough data points to determine if this trend is accurate. If temperatures are increasing, it could impact the lake over time and make it more vulnerable to other negative impacts. The next parameter is dissolved oxygen. So this also fluctuates daily and seasonally. This is closely related to temperature as well as plant productivity. When you have low levels of dissolved oxygen, it can impact respiration. All organisms that have gills, like fish and aquatic insects, do require dissolved oxygen in the water. It can also impact organism growth and reproduction and habitat quality. A lot of our cold water species, like Atlantic salmon and trout, also require well-oxygenated water. For freshwater, the guideline is 6.5 milligrams per liter, and all lake sites did exceed this threshold throughout the program, so it does not appear that these levels are detrimental to aquatic life. pH is the acidity of water. Most aquatic organisms have different tolerances to pH levels. pH can impact acidification, so when the pH declines over time and the water becomes more acidic. It can also impact alkalinity. This is the buffering capacity of water, so its ability to resist changes in pH. A lot of organisms, as I mentioned, have different thresholds, so it can impact organism growth and reproduction. pH can also impact contaminants. So heavy metals like mercury or aluminum are more or less soluble at different pH values. So the Canadian guidelines are 6.5 value pH. However, here in Nova Scotia, specifically Southwest Nova Scotia, we have a few factors that make our pH values naturally a little bit lower, as well as historic pollution, things such as acid rain. So we also include the Nova Scotia Salmon Association guideline of 5. The pH values fell within these ranges throughout the program. So the acidity appears to pose minimal threat, and we did observe an upward trend for pH at all sites. Total dissolved and suspended solids are made up of algae, dead organic materials, and silt. Total dissolved solids are the smaller particles that can pass through a 45 micrometer filter, while total suspended solids are larger particles that do not pass through this filter. When you have elevated levels of these solids, it can impact plant productivity, and in turn you can see changes to dissolved oxygen, water chemistry, habitat quality, the water taste and odor. This one's more important when you're looking at drinking water sources. It can also impact water clarity and sedimentation. Looking at solids is important when we were assessing for development, the impacts of development, as when you have increased development, you oftentimes see increased levels of these solids. These levels did not appear to be detrimental to Sherbrooke Lake. E. coli is a bacteria that's found in the intestines of warm-blooded animals. This is often monitored for when you're looking at different sources of fecal contamination. So if you have things such as faulty septic systems or straight pipes or livestock contamination, you will oftentimes see elevated levels of E. coli. This is important to monitor for because it can cause both human and wildlife health risks. So there are different waterborne diseases and illnesses associated with the microbes that come along with E. coli. There are 2 guidelines that we follow. The primary recreational guideline is for any activity where your body is submersed in the water and you're likely to ingest that water. The secondary recreational guideline is for any activity where you're not directly in the water, but could still potentially ingest it. So this would be things like boating or fishing. The average yearly readings of E. coli were very low. Sherbrooke Lake itself often had undetectable levels. However, following rainfall events, which are 25 millimeters of rain in 24 hours, we did see an increase in bacteria at these stream sites, so it's best to act with caution following rainfall events and swimming in streams and rivers. The final results that we'll have a look at are the sediment samples. So each year, we took sediment samples at the lake sites and 1 stream site, which was cycled through. These were analyzed for 27 different metals, phosphorus, and orthophosphate. So this was to assess the risk of internal nutrient loading and then the potential risk from the accumulation of metals. This table here shows the metals that most frequently exceeded or approached these guidelines. Anything in yellow was approaching guidelines. Anything in orange exceeded the ISQG guidelines, and then the single value in red exceeded both the CCME and the Nova Scotia guidelines. We did see an increase in sediment, in heavy metals in the sediment each year, and 2023 was the first year that a stream site exceeded or approached any guidelines. Similar to pH, we do have some factors here in this part of the province that we naturally have higher levels of certain heavy metals, specifically arsenic, uranium, and mercury. So we didn't find any apparent issues in the water quality trends for either the lake or its tributaries. The low levels of nutrients, so that nitrogen and phosphorus, and the low levels of E. coli suggest that there's low pollution occurring at Sherbrooke Lake. However, this does provide us with good baseline information on the current water quality trends, and this could be revisited in the future to assess the impacts of any development that occurs on or around the lake. It is important to attempt to maintain or improve the trends that we did observe in this baseline study, so it's important for homeowners to understand how their land use practices can impact water quality. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the volunteers, committee members, and staff that have helped make this project possible. Thank you.
Thank you. You're doing a good job. What are our next steps?
Next steps.
I'm just trying, I gotta move things along.
No, absolutely. And I'm just, I want people to sort of absorb what they've heard because
well, it all sounded pretty good to me.
It's an enormous amount of work and effort to put all that together. There are a few lakes in this province that have established that kind of baseline information. One thing I'm going to recommend as chair of that committee is that this council consider and continue to support every 3 years a return to do another survey of the lake. And in that way, you're not going to have a stranded asset over here. In other words, this is what we knew up until 23, and now we don't know anymore. So if you can continue every 3 years following the same protocols that were used, that would really strengthen the ability to deal with what kind of changes might be happening to that lake, especially since MODL is still very much determined to build the public access on the lake. And we made this pitch to MODL, by the way, on Tuesday. We met with their council. So I'm asking this council to consider working with MODL to continue to support the baseline survey 1 year every 3 years.
Yeah. Andre, you got a question?
Yeah, we're going to momentarily, we're going to receive a report on our municipal-wide lake study where we're doing baselines on a number of lakes. Can someone remind me what the interval is that we're checking those lakes?
That was just that was a 1 year study.
Okay.
So there's results today, but we hadn't determined.
If we're going to continue it on.
For future, I think that the idea was to continue either with those lakes or to look at other lakes. That's what we had decided last year.
Yeah.
And I'd like to stress the word baseline. What you have is a snapshot if you're doing 1 year. The baseline that we've done is over a 6-year period, missing 1 year for the pandemic. And it gives, because there's natural perturbation in these systems. In other words, you monitor 1 year, you see one result, the next year could be quite different. And you could see on those graphs how things move up and down. It's over a period of 5 years, which we established at the beginning, takes out a lot of the bumps in the road. So you can say with some confidence, this is the way things are.
I guess if I can continue, the only comment I have is like, the reason for this, as you know, is that we had a concern raised because there was going to be a park built by our municipal neighbors that was going to dramatically change the public use of the lake, which hasn't happened really.
No, it hasn't happened, but
we now have that strong baseline.
Yeah.
And there are many lakes that are inhabited or are populated with residences, and we don't do a 3-year baseline ongoing, or we don't support that at this point. We're trying to collect some data, as if you hang around, you'll see on some of those lakes, so that if there were to be some sort of development, we'd have some idea what was there. I don't know if I'm speaking only for myself, not all council. I don't know if I would want to continue out with a frequency of 3 years, because to me, we've established what we set out to do, establish that baseline. And whether we continue to monitor it on a 3-year basis, there are many other lakes. Why would we do that for one? That's a question we have to answer.
Derek first.
Yeah. Well, if I can just, you already have a very solid base of information, and you can either leave it as a stranded piece of information and accept whatever change takes place over here and not really, you have to have a way of again checking as things happen. MODL is absolutely intending, they said this on Tuesday, to build that public access facility. And I think it's, the investment is actually quite small. And to be able to ground truth that information into the future. It makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, the thing's out of date and people will challenge it and say, well, it doesn't apply anymore.
How it could not apply. We have the data as of today.
But things are changing. Things are changing.
That would be the change.
The cyanobacteria is a new phenomenon that we're dealing with in Nova Scotia lakes right now. Who knows where that's going to be a year, this year, next year. Everything's changing. And so it's a way of building that into your understanding. You made a significant investment in this. I think what we're saying is that investment will pay off a lot more if every 3 years you touch base again.
Yeah. Derek?
Thank you. The screen that we have up here now, sediment samples, there's one red dot, and that seems to be a significant spike in lead. Explain that. Maybe it's not significant. Maybe it was so low that's not. I think you can explain that, would be appreciated.
Yeah, so that was following the extreme rainfall that we had in 2023. And so weather can impact different readings for different heavy metals in sediment. So it could have stirred up sediment or allowed more to precipitate out into the sediment.
Well,
Yes.
Is that significantly high level? Even though it's in the red, it probably shows the increase.
Yes.
So is that a concerning number?
Yes. However, the heavy metal concentrations tend to be higher in the sediment than it is in the drinking water. So Lake 2, that is the deepest part of the lake. So typically the way that heavy metals work in sediment, you'll see the highest levels in the deepest part of the lake. So that, I believe, maybe Garth can correct me how deep the deepest part is?
About 90 feet.
About 90 feet. So it's unlikely that the metals in that sediment would be impacting humans.
the quality of the water, paper swimming.
Yes.
Tina?
Thank you. So first off, to both of you, thank you for being here. I know Coastal Action is up in a minute here in its entirety, but thank you to Mr. Beckett and all of the volunteers who have certainly contributed beyond the financial contribution that both councils have been able to contribute to this. So thank you for that, the dedication there, Coastal Action. I certainly support the suggestion that Garth is bringing up to the table here today. I think the uniqueness of this, in terms of why aren't we doing this with every lake around, in terms of the District of Chester, we all know the reason for that. We've all been here, except, I'm sorry, for Councillor Wells, in terms of the and I'll try to maybe capture that, but and be polite about it. I'll try to be polite. So the District of Lunenburg decided to develop public access, but they decided not to do that on their side of the lake. So they decided to purchase a piece of property. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. They decided, unbeknownst to at least me, who lives in Ross in the district, and all the council, I believe, to purchase a piece of land on the Chester side for a development of public access. So we felt it was important as council at that time, once it all kind of, we've arrived at this and it's happening, irregardless of District of Lunenburg and where it might be in their plan of action to develop the site, year 1, year 2, year 5 out, it's still a possibility, and to establish the water quality and to monitor that from that point on. Again, I'm open to being corrected here, but I think it's important to continue to do that because that hasn't changed. That's still on the table in terms of a chance of a possibility of public access, and we don't know to what extent that's going to be. So again, we felt it was important as councillors at the time to invest in that baseline. And you're right, Garth has indicated that if something does develop, and that's for them to decide based on their own budgets in terms of where they want to spend their money, not this council, but in terms of public access. So I think that's important to the residents around the entirety of Sherbrooke Lake that we, along with the District of Lunenburg, continue to invest in the established baseline of information. That's just my input there.
Gary?
I'm curious to how much money we've contributed. We're talking about redoing it. What would it cost?
Yeah, so our budget was $7,000 per year, and that was part of the memorandum of understanding that we entered into with the Municipality of Lunenburg, that we capped out at a maximum of $7,000 contribution. So Municipality of the District of Lunenburg contributed significantly more to this project than Chester did.
So the request
would be 3 years from now to spend
$10,000, allowing for inflation. It's about as cheap as you can get, given that volunteers do a lot of this work.
Maybe someone can, I don't know, how much of the Sherbrooke Lake is actually in Chester Municipality? Do we know?
Half. It runs down the center of the lake.
Okay. And how much is developed on our side?
Do you mean in terms of the public
That's quite a
access?
few. There's quite a few houses.
There are over 400 property owners on the lake. So it's still developing. There's lots of land for development still on the lake.
I think it's the largest lake in the municipality.
One of the in the municipality for sure. One of the largest in the province. But I have a couple of other things. Do you want to continue this conversation?
Just
or do you
keep
want,
going.
I know you're on a tight, I just don't want you to cut me off.
An hour and 20 minutes left to get this all done.
All right. Now, one of the things that will help to focus your mind is if there's another blue-green algae bloom in that lake. And there were suspected ones several years ago. And what happens in the current situation is that the ministry used to actually come out and take a sample. They don't do that anymore. Instead, they might look at a photo someone takes. It's a pretty rough and ready. But then they'll issue, along with the Department of Health, an advisory not to use the lake. And it's a seasonal fire. In other words, for the rest of the summer. We're suggesting that there's a risk there of toxic algae. Well, I can tell you the reaction around the lake has been pretty strong to that. And so we've done work, and Kaylee's shown you some of the results. The probe that MODL bought really helped us to get a better handle on whether or not we were seeing any of the so-called cyanobacteria that emit the toxins. All right, so far a clean bill of health. The province and other Atlantic provinces, all 4 of them, 2 years ago held a one-day workshop and brought all the scientists together who were working on cyanobacteria. And we were having issues in New Brunswick, issues here, and so on. It was a terrific way of bringing all the information together. They invited municipalities to go. I was asked to go on behalf of MODL in Chester, and I did. And this winter, I talked to the province, are they going to hold another session? Because we're still in the dark in a lot of ways on cyanobacteria. And yet, it's a real threat to the use of our lakes. And the province kind of said, well, we hadn't really thought about it. So I'm suggesting, Warden, that this council and MODL approach the province and recommend that they continue to bring the science together so that we have sensible policy reactions. The way we're doing it right now is, it's backwoods. And you've got a lot of people invested an awful lot of money in recreation lakes, and it's not just Sherbrooke Lake, there's all the lakes. And if we don't have a better provincial understanding of how to deal with that, and one of the ways is to bring these scientists together. So I'm urging the council to, along with MODL, and go after the Minister of Environment and say, isn't it time to have another one of these sessions? So, last point I'll make. The Stewardship Committee has, as I said in my introduction, provided information to the public, the reports, there's a 3-pager, all this sort of thing. But we think that a stronger effort needs to be made to communicate with people, not just on Sherbrooke Lake, but within both municipalities, about their role as stewards of water quality. And we're suggesting that you reconstitute or develop a new committee on covering that subject. Draw from both municipalities, volunteers, who would help to design a program to reach out to people and make them understand they're part of the problem. They can't just sit at their cottages, drinking beer and having a good time. There's more to it than that. There's a responsibility that you have. So we're asking you to go forward and support setting up a group like that, and I think it would be of real value in the long term. There is one other thing I want to say to you, because I went after MODL about this, and this council took the leadership road and came up with the Lakeshore Protection Zone. That's just a brilliant idea. Kings County has done something even more far-reaching, covers all their lakes. And I'm pushing MODL very hard as the chair to do the same thing. Warden, you have a job to do, is to march down the road and say to the mayor, get it done, because your side of the lake is a mess. Your package, I don't know whether it has the photos in it. I took a couple of photos last year on Lunenburg side, brand new $500,000 cottages going in, stripped every tree off the property, sediment running down the hill into the lake, and it's just like the Wild West.
Okay.
So kudos to you.
I'll make a quick comment. I guess I'm not trying in any way to diminish everything we've done. I think it's terrific. And we set out, I feel like we set out, we've met our goals, but out of establishing that baseline. I guess what I'm trying to do is echo your own sentiments that we need a broader strategy, and the discussion following this one is part of that introduction to that strategy, which we started down that road a year ago, whenever it is that we approved the budget to start looking at other lakes. But, you know, I'm not sure, like, I think you made a request here today. I'm not sure what this council is going to do with it, but I think we need to have a broader discussion about what we want to do, because with all respect, of course, everybody thinks their lake is the most important lake if they live on it, and we want to make sure that we protect all lakes in an equitable way from a policy standpoint. So if we were just to say, okay, we're going to do this program on this lake, you know, and it's all haphazard, that's bad policy. So I think that we should, as a council, if we're going to go down this road of protecting lakes, which is probably wise, then we should have a broad discussion, and maybe you'll be part of that, I hope, about what we should be doing municipal-wide to ensure the quality of our inland water supplies.
Well, it makes perfect sense. By the way, I've met my goals. You haven't met your goals. You've got a big tablet in front of you. I signed up for this job.
Employed then Tina, and then we got to.
I just want to thank you for your report. I do agree with Councillor Urbino. We need his further discussion, come up with some policy, but for now, excuse me, I do agree with having the 3-year. I think we've invested money, and to do that follow-up with something we've already done until we come up with a future plan, I fully support. I think we've invested enough into it, and $7,000 is a lot of money, but it's not a huge investment. For what we've done to continue doing it, and somewhere down the road we make changes to do things in a different and a broader way, that would be part of the discussion policy, but for now, I fully support it moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Tina?
So thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I think this is important. So with all due respect, Garth is here, Coastal Action, we're going to continue on, but this is important, so the discussion's right now. So I just want to be reminded which lakes, is it just simply Fox Point Lake? Are we doing a monitoring program there?
We did a monitoring program there. We stopped it.
Okay.
We were going to relook at possibly doing a similar thing.
Okay.
In other words.
Going back to Fox Point, because we have the baseline,
Yeah.
and possibly 3 years to do another check to check the baseline of what the evidence we have.
Okay, no, I just wanted to kind of refresh on that one. But again, I don't know, and I guess that will come maybe in the next discussion or following even that when we have the broader discussion. I don't know that there are any other lakes in the municipality of Chester that have the situation in terms of if we're wanting to compare apples to apples and why we're doing certain things. This is probably the only lake, I think, in terms of municipal government looking at public access as an owner of property on a lake. I don't know that any other levels of government own parcels of land on any of our lakes. Except for DNR, of course. But I don't know. So I think that in itself, and again, part of our commitment to the residents and to the property owners at the time. And that doesn't change. That doesn't go away.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it to it.
Yeah, for me. So when we do these monitoring programs, I'm looking down the road. So if you identify something in your reports that needs immediate action based on the data, who goes forward with that? Is it the province? Is it us as a municipality? So you get an algae bloom and it's severe. So who treats it? So what? I mean, it's great to have the data, but how do you treat the problem?
If you have an.
So you warn the residents, I understand.
Right, but if you have a bloom, Kaylee took you through some of the slides, there are things that are the root cause of a bloom. Nutrients, algae eat, so they have to eat. Temperature, if it's warmer, more likely to occur. So those are causal agents, and so having the Lakeshore Protection Zone is a way of addressing nutrients getting into the lake. If we had a septic tank inspection program, which would likely be a provincial responsibility, and that'd be another way of reducing nutrients going into the lake. If Lunenburg County had controls on building and not letting sediment run into the lake, that's another source of nutrients. So those are things you can, in other words, if you see a bloom, okay, you go to the causal agents, and there are different parts of government that can do that. It's also about people learning to be stewards. In other words, not being idiots about their nutrients, okay? Fertilizing their lawns. You know, how many people have got lawns on the lake?
We can put policies in place that help to.
Exactly. But when it comes to then telling the public about what kind of algae is in the lake, whether the cyanobacteria are there, that's a provincial environment and provincial health responsibility. The fact of the matter is right now, they're not really delivering on that in any substantive way. And so that's why if we have a bloom this summer, and you know, the panic sets in pretty fast.
So when you have, so who decides, is the province that we say the lake is not, or is it?
It's the province.
It's on your recommendation or the province?
No,
just give them information.
It's the province itself.
Okay.
And right now, as I told you, they're not even going out. Before they pick up a bottle of water, look at it like that, so, well, that looks like blue-green algae. Well, you know, that's just not on.
You
know, science behind this, and the science is very, very complicated. To do an analysis for cyanobacteria, we have to send the samples out of the province. We can't do the analysis here. It takes a couple of weeks. It's very expensive. And by the time you've got the results back, the bloom is probably gone.
Okay.
So it's, you know, the province needs to be far more active, and municipalities need to send that message.
Not just for lakes. The province has dropped the ball on all kinds of stuff. So
I won't go there.
Okay, thank you very much. We got to bring it to a conclusion, and I have to agree with both parties. One, that we should do this 3 years from now, but there is a broader discussion, and at some point in time, we have to decide how much money are we going to spend to do similar work all the lakes in the municipality of Chester that require it. So
there you go.
That will be after Gareth presents, and we'll see how that all works out. I know we have to do this sort of work, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a 7-year plan.
Yes, I know, it's not Gareth, but Gareth is coming for that one. This is on all of our ones, for all of the ones that we currently deal with.
Okay, I'll stay on.
So you got the floor again. Oh, Chad has the floor. Yeah.
So
more than one lake.
Yeah, so the secondary report is kind of what we just referenced earlier, is that a year ago we had a similar conversation, and we determined that we wanted to do some sampling of broader lakes in the municipality. And so essentially what we did is we looked at all the kind of lake systems and the tributaries and watershed, and picked 5 lakes that work into those watershed areas to study each of those. So this is the second report today is on that program.
What number is that on our agenda, so I can bring it up?
Same package of information.
7.3, thank you.
Okay. So Kaylee will do a quick overview of some of the results of that project.
Okay. This presentation should be a lot more brief than the previous one. So as mentioned, this program started in 2023 to get a general idea of water quality of 5 different lakes across the municipality. So we chose lakes that were either at the bottom of a large sub-watershed to get an idea of where contaminants could end up at. Or lakes that were recommended by council. So we had 21 sites that we monitored from June to September, and we were focused mainly on pollutant sources. So we looked at E. coli, nitrogen, phosphorus, and then we also had a YSI water quality monitoring unit. So that looks at things like temperature, pH, dissolved oxygen, and a couple other parameters. As we all know, 2023, we had some extreme weather, so some of the water quality could have been affected by this weather. We took a bit of a different approach for analyzing the results from this. We used the Water Quality Index program, which was developed by the Canadian Council of the Ministers of Environment. And so this gives each site a different ranking. So it gives it a numerical value from 0 to 100, 0 being the worst, 100 being the best. And it also gives it a categorical ranking. So this system ranks your sites based on how many parameters failed the guidelines, how many readings failed the guidelines, and the magnitude of the failure of those readings. So we only included pollutant guidelines for this because that was the main focus. So we looked at total phosphorus, total nitrogen, and E. coli. Overall, the sites had excellent water quality, and the few failures that we did see mostly came from E. coli and phosphorus. Here's just a visual representation so you can see geographically which sites performed well and which sites performed a little bit less well. So anything in green was that excellent, the blue is good, and then the single red dot or orange dot was marginal.
Is that the Mill Lake down your way?
No, Canaan.
Canaan.
So I won't go in depth on explaining the parameters again, but total phosphorus and total nitrogen are important for plant growth. When you see excess levels of this, it can lead to overgrowth of algae. Overall, the levels were low at most sites. We did see 2 spikes, one at the Gold River Inlet and one at Lake Ramsey. So the Gold River Inlet, there is some agricultural activity upstream from that. And then Lake Ramsey, that spike in the fall is likely due to what's called fall turnover, when the cooler water at the bottom of the lake mixes with the surface water. And so that water at the bottom of the lake can oftentimes have elevated levels of nutrients from plant activity and decomposition. So when that mixes with the surface water, you can see higher levels of nutrients at the surface. That is a natural process that happens twice a year. So E. coli, as I mentioned, is important to monitor for fecal contamination, either from septic systems or livestock contamination. So overall, we did see relatively low readings. We did have 6 readings that were above guidelines, those primary and secondary guidelines that I mentioned earlier. The highest reading was 910 CFU per 100 milliliters, which surpassed both guidelines. And Gully Brook at Lake Ramsey exceeded twice. There is some agricultural activity that runs through this stream. It appears to be maybe a cattle farm, so that could be a source of E. coli from this site.
Can you determine the E. coli? Is it from human fecal matter? Is it from fish fecal matter? Is there any way to identify that? Because I just look at Gold River. Is it the inlet? It didn't have a good reading on E. coli.
Yeah. So typically when we're talking about E. coli, it's from warm-blooded creatures, so humans or mammals, not from fish. So surface water temperature, as I mentioned in the previous presentation, these do have daily and seasonal fluctuations. So taking one reading per day doesn't give you an overall idea of the potential trends that are occurring. We did see elevated readings at most sites, well above the 20 degrees Celsius thresholds. But again, this was seen across all of the lakes that we monitor, not just for this project. Dissolved oxygen, which is very closely related to temperature and plant productivity, was typically above the guideline of 6.5 milligrams per liter at most sites. However, Holohan Lake and Lake Ramsey had some sites that were consistently below this guideline. This could be a concern for aquatic health. However, a lot of these sites had a lot of wetlands, so swamps, marshes, which can oftentimes have naturally lower levels of dissolved oxygen. pH is important to monitor because a lot of aquatic organisms have different tolerances to pH. As I mentioned, pH can impact acidification, alkalinity, organism growth and reproduction, and contaminants. So with different pH values, you can have different solubility of heavy metals. The Canadian guidelines are 6.5, but as I mentioned, in Nova Scotia and our part of the province, we typically have lower levels, but quite a few sites fell below the threshold of 5, which is set by the Nova Scotia Salmon Association. So this could be a concern for aquatic health. This could also be related to wetlands, as wetlands typically also have lower pH than other lakes. For chlorophyll A and phycocyanin, phycocyanin did not approach any guidelines, and chlorophyll A does not have any guidelines. And for total dissolved solids, there are no set guidelines for this, but a study showed that pristine Nova Scotian lakes have an average of 20 milligrams per liter, and most of our sites fell around this value. So overall, based on the contaminants, the water quality was good at most of the sites. The sites do not appear to be consistently impacted by bacteria or nutrient contamination. However, pH could be a concern for aquatic organisms, and one way to address this could be to install pH loggers, which collect data at different intervals, and this could indicate the trends that are occurring with pH at these different sites. So as mentioned, 2023 was a year of extreme weather with our droughts and severe rain, so this was an atypical year for water quality and data collection.
Yeah, hard to take anything away from that too. Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the results from that the municipal-wide lake program. So
actually reasonably good information.
Yeah.
Just to complete the circle, how much did this study cost?
I don't have the number right with me, but it's within the vicinity of about $26,000, give or take. Yeah, I could look up the exact number and share it with you. But
Didn't we do a study in Stanford Lake as well at some point?
We did, yeah.
So we have a baseline established there as well.
Yes, yeah, just so we knew what was.
Understood.
Yeah.
Is there any others?
No.
Fox.
Yeah, we did that.
Okay.
And we would have information on Spectacle Lake because of our looking at it from a water supply.
So we have a baseline of about 10 lakes now, 9 or 10.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Good information on someone.
Yeah. No, I understood. Start.
So I mean, I guess we just have to decide where we go from here, you know.
And the purpose of this would be to inform land use policy. So, you know, we just don't want to just willy-nilly do tests and not just for trivia purposes. So if we are interested in trying to do better land use control,
to maintain the quality,
then this would inform that. So I think that it warrants a discussion with our planning staff of what we do with this information going forward, or we do nothing. If we're not going to do anything with it, then we should suspend the activity. But if our plan is to eventually, you know, control development in a way that will preserve the quality of those lakes, then we should do that. That would be appropriate in my mind.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's a bigger discussion than just that here today.
With the lakefront overlay.
That was sort of done blindly though, without actually any data.
Which one?
The lakefront overlay. Yeah, and plus that's also reactionary. It's based on the request of residents.
Yeah.
To put it on there, it's not because there's a need or whatever. It's just like, we want to protect our lake. Well, does it need protection? Is it already ruined? We don't know.
No, I think it was a step in the right direction either way, but nevertheless, you know.
So what's
wasn't. Yeah, it's just whether we have to enhance that, whether we have to control that, or what sewer systems do.
What happens almost every time is that a proposed development is made nearby a lake, and then there's a big, just open discussion about how it's going to affect the lake, and we have no information.
Now we have some.
Now we have some information, but how does that inform policy? We haven't, those two things haven't touched yet.
So what do we want to do with it right now?
Well, I could just add, if you would like, that I think the intention, one of the items on our work plan is to bring in some representatives from Kings County, because they have a fairly extensive program, to let you know what their program is, how they use it, how they implement that program, what the implications are for budget, how they use it in land use policy development. So we still have to do that. That's on the agenda on the work plan to do. And then I think that would probably be the impetus for the next, the next discussion.
That makes sense.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So do we need to make a decision on the Sherbrooke Lake one or not? I mean, all the rest relates.
We've got 3 years.
I think it's direction to staff to include it in the work plan for 3 years. And 3 years you'll come and have that discussion.
Well, included, but I mean, 3 years from now, I mean, that's a different bunch of people, a whole raft of budget discussions associated with that, whatever. But I think it's our intent to do it at the moment.
Direction or motion to do
What do we prefer?
I think that you should, because I think it would be wise to, can we not talk more broadly first? I mean, I have no real beef with it. I just want it to be comprehensive.
Yeah.
But the motion to spend money in 3 years is not process for.
Well, no, I know, because anybody can change that any year, any given year from now to then. I think we have the broader discussion first.
Yeah, I think we need to.
I mean, we think it's important. It's just that a motion to approve a budget 3 years from now doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, so we can do this. So just for the upcoming year, because we're getting into that, so is council wanting to continue with kind of what we did this year with that monitoring, or you want to?
Our friends at Kings hopefully soon.
So you want to wait until we have that discussion first?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah,
just want to make sure.
Budget discussion.
Okay. Now I know that we're in a hurry, but you can run the meeting, but I gotta